So we don't do any custody at all. We never hold funds on behalf of our users. And I don't think anything like that exists in the US yet, at least. There's also this law in Switzerland where you don't have to do any KYC and AML as long as the service provider doesn't hold funds on your behalf, up to 1K per day and 100K per year. So that makes it this even more interesting case for us. So basically you can imagine people in Europe can just download Relai on their phone within a couple of seconds from the App Store, and then can open it, and they within 1 minute they can go through a couple of screens, and then within 1 minute from $10 already they can buy Bitcoin 24/7, pay it via bank transfer or via a credit card or Apple Pay, Google Pay, and they get it right into with an on-chain transaction right into their non-custodial wallet, which is Relai is also a wallet. So in that little process, a wallet got installed on your phone, and you have the private key as a user. We never have access to your funds, to your Bitcoin, to your private key.
If you enjoy this podcast and you want to learn more about Bitcoin, then make sure to subscribe to our free newsletter. Every Friday, we send out insights into macro, Bitcoin on-chain, and Bitcoin mining. Join over 100,000 existing subscribers by clicking the link in the description or going to newsletter.blockwareintelligence.com. This video is sponsored by Stampseed. You plan on holding your Bitcoin for decades, so you need to make sure that your seed phrase is documented in something that can last just as long. Stampseed's signature titanium plates and stamping kits do just that. If you simply write your Bitcoin seed phrase down on a piece of paper, it's vulnerable to fire, water, and all sorts of erosion that can happen over time. Make sure you keep it secure for years to come. Head to stampseed.com and use the code Blockware15 for 15% off the entire website. You wouldn't walk down the street with a giant sign that has your home address on it. So why would you do the same on the internet? You need to use a VPN. OrcaVPN is a service that encrypts your internet connection and hides your IP address, ensuring your online activities are private and secure. OrcaVPN works on all different devices: Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, and Linux. Head to OrcaVPN.co and use the code Blockware, and you can access OrcaVPN for just $1.99 a month. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can ensure that all your internet activity is private and secure. Again, that's OrcaVPN.co, OrcaVPN.co. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Blockware Podcast. This week, I'm proud to welcome Julian Liniger of the Relai App. Julian, welcome.
Hi, Mitch. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
I'm excited to jam. Can we start with your introduction? Just tell us a little bit about your background. Who are you? What was your career path, and how did you ultimately end up in Bitcoin?
Sure. So I'm Julian Liniger. I'm now 31 already. I know I look younger, but I just turned 31 a couple of days ago. I don't really have a career path. I mean, I grew up in Switzerland. I studied here psychology and business administration, and I worked a little bit in banking, as many Swiss people do. But I didn't really like this. And then I did some management consulting in a small company and did an exchange semester when I was in my master's in California, in the north of San Francisco. And there kind of Silicon Valley, really liked the whole entrepreneurial thing there. Got back with a lot of spirit and a lot of energy, and figured I want to try things myself and build my own companies. And since 2015, I was into Bitcoin a lot. So I thought I kind of merged this drive for building my own thing and my passion about Bitcoin. And so it happened that around 2018, I started my first company, and quickly thereafter my second and third. And so third now is Relai. So I don't have a traditional career path. I just started companies, and now for almost 4 years I'm with Relai, and it's really exciting to build a business in such a dynamic environment from scratch. So still really enjoy this.
Absolutely. That's very exciting. That's, I'm sure, more eventful than the traditional go work for someone else career path.
Yeah.
What were the first two companies you started, and what did you learn from those businesses that helps you today?
Yeah, they're still around, actually. So first one was Bravis, a consulting company. So because basically the only thing I knew, I was very young, I was 25 or 26, And so the only thing I knew was a little bit of consulting. So in this other consultancy, which was a very small group, like a boutique consulting firm. We did management consulting and education. And there, basically, I went from intern to junior consultant to management consultant, and they wanted to keep me and go this whole traditional career path, senior consultant, and maybe eventually partner. But this I didn't really want to do. But I learned a bit of consulting, in these maybe 3-4 years I was with this company already back when I was still a student, and then a little bit after. So this was basically what I knew, and then also I knew about Bitcoin. So I figured, I could just combine the two. So I started this small company with two of my friends. One of them is still around, also in this company. And we started basically to go after banks or asset managers, basically traditional financial institutions here in Switzerland and also beyond a bit, and help them to understand first this whole Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain, thing, because this was back in 2018, I guess, where no one really had a clue, including the big, financial institutions here in Switzerland. So we tried to help them figure out what this all is, what it all means, to understand it a bit, and then also to create strategies around this new topic. So how would they deal with it? Would they be an early adopter or late mover, etc.? And then last but not least, help them obviously to create products, which a lot of banks are now starting to do. But then this was really, really early. I think there is probably one online bank, Swissquote, and one private bank, Marki Baumann, who did at least something, who had at least some sort of access for their investors, for their clients into this space. And the others really did not. So we had a couple of interesting projects with one of them, for example, with Swissquote. We helped educate their employees in a couple of seminars and workshops, etc. And then we had a project with the biggest private bank, which was also very interesting, Julius Baer. We were responsible for educating some of their internal departments on this topic. We had a research project with ING, and it was fun, it was cool, but obviously also not very successful. I mean, it was not like that we got rich from that, but I think it's a lot of experience that we took from that, and also good first connections, network in this space. And we could build up reputation, being like the experts, even though we were super young and super naive. But at least we could basically show that we have some sort of expertise, probably more than most of the old bankers that sat in the audiences, right? And so that was cool. And then from there on, we figured that there needs to be some sort of a education, like certification standard, like a product, because we could not go out and educate all these hundred thousands of bankers that live here in Switzerland. No, we need to standardize this a little bit. And therefore, the second company basically emerged, which is called CCFE, Certified Crypto Finance Expert, which is the first and now biggest certification provider for education in crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain here in Switzerland, specifically tailored for the financial industry. So nowadays, all of the Swiss banks and also some German banks and other banks in Europe are sending people to these courses. They're standardized 3 days courses, 6 of them every year. Plus, there's an online course where people can enroll on a flexible basis. And so we have, more than 700 people in the last 3 years have, and bankers, mainly bankers, have done these courses from almost every bank in Switzerland at this point. The big ones like UBS, but also smaller local ones like the Kantonalbanken, and private banks like Marki Baumann and Julius Baer, as I said before. So many of these people are now, these bankers are now getting their education and certification through this course. That's a nice one financially, and also I'm not really operationally involved there anymore a lot, so it's good passive income. And still controlling shareholder there, but not really operationally involved anymore. And so last but not least, this led to the founding Relai, which probably was the last step of finding a scalable business model. So the first is really not scalable at all. It's consulting, selling your time basically, even
Right.
at a low rate. So that was really not a good business model. Then standardizing it a little bit so that it detaches from my time, but it's still like an SME, right? It's still not a scalable tech product or something that can basically conquer the whole world and onboard millions of people, but still makes good money. And then now, last but not least, Relai is really a tech product, a fast growth, venture backed startup that potentially can expand to the whole world, and already now attracts hundreds of thousands of clients and millions or tens of millions, hundreds of millions a year in volume. So that's really exciting, and yeah, so that's what I'm mainly doing with my time for the last 3 years, and probably we can go a bit deeper in what exactly we do with Relai if you want.
Yeah, I would love to. And I do want to hit on, a couple points you sort of brought up there. This idea of, oh, you're young and people may you quote unquote don't have experience, but I think that's what's super interesting about Bitcoin, because it's such a revolutionary new thing. Like, there is nobody who has decades of Bitcoin experience.
Mm.
And what I found, it doesn't matter that I'm 23 years old, you're 31, we're still young guys. People will take our opinions just as seriously as if we were, in our 40s or 50s, because there's no education, there's no, like, you can't major in Bitcoin in college, right? And so that's interesting that you built sort of more a structured curriculum for trying to give people that Bitcoin education. And it kind of taps into what makes the internet so valuable, is that you said it was like a 3-day certification course, right? You don't need to go and spend years studying a subject, right? Now that we have the internet, and you can sort of really study things at your own pace. Granted, you're not going to understand Bitcoin fully in 3 days, but the fact that you can do that kind of structure in that course and get a solid understanding enough where, a lot of people, I imagine in banking, they just know nothing about it. I think
Mm.
there's still a lot of room to educate many more bankers, and I think that's what we're starting to see in the last year or so, as these institutions get ready to go into the ETF. So we got a bright future ahead, and I want to get into Relai App. So the ship you're now steering, is it the only Bitcoin only exchange in Switzerland? So I'm not super familiar, right? I know in the US we've got Strike, Cash App, there's Swan, there's River. So there's a few different Bitcoin only options. What's the scene like over there on the other side of the pond?
Yeah, good question. So we definitely have less and probably less big players than in the US. Like it's probably with most of the industries, right? It was the same with internet startups. The big ones, they were all founded in the US, in Silicon Valley, and in New York, etc. And so not only a small amount of successful startups probably in that area in Europe. One of them maybe was Spotify, and a couple of others, but like all the big ones like Amazon, Google, Facebook, etc., they're all founded in the US. And so the same thing I think is happening in Bitcoin, unfortunately, right now, from my perspective, from the European perspective, unfortunately, but also it's just how it goes, because you guys have a better venture capital and overall entrepreneurship culture, I think. But so over here, yes, we're not the only ones. We are, I would, as of my knowledge, we are probably the biggest one, at least the biggest Bitcoin only, fiat on ramp, with. So we're a broker, regulated broker in Switzerland. There are many other brokers like us, but based on what I know, from talking to these other guys and from also public information, we are by far the biggest one at this point. We're also the only ones that really have attracted significant venture capital from VCs and angel investors. Several rounds of now close to so now, at this point now, we have raised a bit more than 7 million. We are close to raising more money in the near future. And so we are on this growth and expansion path, where most of the others are more on a bootstrapping path, and kind of more at this point more like SMEs. They're also doing well, some of them, but I think we're considerably the biggest ones. With a couple of metrics I can give is that we have around 300,000 app downloads now, and around 100,000 active users on a monthly basis, around 25,000 active users that actually are buying Bitcoin with us. And there's a volume between 25 and 30 million every month. And between retail customers and also private customers. So private retailers are basically investing 10, 20, 50 or $100, whereas then the other side of the spectrum, high net worth individuals or also businesses that invest 100, 200K, 500K, sometimes even a million into Bitcoin in one trade. So yeah, also from a followers perspective, for example, on Twitter or X, I think we have at this point around 36 something thousand followers. This is more than basically all the others that I know in Europe combined. Now there's one more in Switzerland, for example. They're called Pocket Bitcoin. Another one is called Get Bitter. Great guys, David and Ruben. I know them. They're in Switzerland. They're also doing very well. There's some other folks in Austria, for example, Coinfinity or 21 Bitcoin. Some in the UK, Coinfloor. Yeah, so there are a couple of them, but they're all rather small or have found their own niche, maybe geographic niche or a specific customer segment. We are kind of the leaders and the bigger guys with maybe also the bigger ambitions at this point. But it's a very friendly co-opetition, let's say, because we're all trying to make this pie bigger, and we're not working against each other, but with each other, and in the end we will all be successful, I hope.
Right. That's awesome to hear. From the start, was it always Bitcoin only? Did you build it, with that in mind, like, hey, we don't want to confuse Bitcoin with all these other altcoins? Like, was it always a Bitcoin maximalist ethos from the beginning?
It was probably from the outside. Like if you look at it from the outside, yes. So we never had any other coin, and we didn't really build towards this at all. But from the inside, at the very beginning, when we first juggled the idea, which was end of 2018, beginning of 19, we still had in mind that we will probably start with Bitcoin, and then we will add others like ETH, etc. Just the most, like the 5 or 10 most popular cryptocurrencies. Just because we were still a bit undereducated on that part. Everything sounded super interesting, and we didn't really understand the difference between Bitcoin and crypto. Right now, obviously, we do, and I think this whole founding a company, bringing it live, and getting all these feedback and learning a lot on this journey, which went from like beginning of 2019 to beginning or mid 2020 when we really went live with the app. This was in June 2020 or July. Then, like in this journey, we really learned a lot of Bitcoin being this savings technology, being digital gold, being for the long term investor, and basically less risk and more potential outcome in the end, etc. Whereas all these cryptos can be, an interesting gamble, but that they're more speculation. They're more about basically venture capital, where these are, tech enabled startups that use blockchain technology for their use cases, and some minor portion of them might be successful, at least for a period of time, but 9 out of 10 die, like in the tech venture capital scene in general as well. And so they are not really made for long-term saving, and that's what we wanted to build. We wanted to build an app that makes it super easy for people to access Bitcoin and save for the long run. That's also why DCA and like auto investing is so important for us. And then, it didn't make sense, after understanding this, didn't make sense to add any other cryptos, because other cryptos would just add risk to the people that are using us for a long-term savings, and it would not add for the long-term return on investment, whatever, thought. And that's also why then we centered the whole brand around this approach and narrative. Bitcoin only, some would call us Bitcoin maximalists, but we try not to be toxic. We really try to make it a rational case that, look, it doesn't make sense to add any other cryptos. Bitcoin is really the digital gold, long-term savings. You don't really need anything else. It's also important to hold it yourself. That's why we are non-custodial. And that's why basically our whole brand and our whole team and all the messaging we do, and all the content, the education that we are doing is really, at this point, really focused on Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. And I think most of the people that get this, that understand this, they are then also, heavy users of us, and not using any, shitcoin casino anymore.
Right. I love that you sort of said, not Bitcoin maximalism from like a toxicity perspective, but it's a rational point of view, right? Bitcoin is the ultimate savings technology. You don't need to diversify your savings into a bunch of different crypto assets, right? Bitcoin is the most decentralized, it's the most secure. It's the only one, we know for a fact that the 21 million is not going to change. There was no pre-mine, there's no founder in control, right? It's so much different from all the other assets, and the innovation is going to happen on Bitcoin. High time preference mindset of people may see, these cryptos have these massive spikes, pump and dumps, whatever. They can get in and out and try to make money that way. But if you're really viewing this with a decades long time horizon, we're still so early to Bitcoin that it doesn't make sense really to store wealth in any other asset. And on the venture capital point, you raised 4.5 million from Jeff Booth in March, and we've also seen some other Bitcoin only businesses like Unchained and Swan raise a lot of venture capital money. Are you seeing a shift in the VC approach, right? Because in 2017 and even 2021 to some extent, a lot of the VC money is going into these crypto casinos. But are you seeing a shift towards Bitcoin only businesses from a VC point of view?
I think so. I mean, maybe less a shift, because there is still a lot of crypto VC money. So this is also, I think, also still a positive trend. But so it's not like that they all, tried crypto and then failed, and now turning their billions into Bitcoin. That's not really the case yet, at least. But I see more and more, either really dedicated Bitcoin only VC funds, turning up, which is a great trend. And I also think that these crypto or fintech VCs are turning more and more positive towards this Bitcoin only narrative. Whereas like 2 3 years ago, it was a super hard case to make, that it was super hard to make them understand that, look, this Bitcoin only and non-custodial narrative has a big future. This was really hard to understand for most of them, whereas now many of them have one or two partners that really dedicate themselves to this Bitcoin only narrative. And I think this is definitely a growing investment case for many of them. So it's not really a shift from one to the other, which I think it will never be, because as I said before, crypto is super exciting for VCs. It depends on which perspective you take. If you take the perspective of most of the people out there, like 90% of the people out there that are just retail investors that try to save their purchasing power on the long run, or family offices that want to, transfer, store and transfer their wealth over generations. Most high net worth individuals, most businesses that just want to have a hedge against the long-term inflation, and just have this sovereignty over control over their money and over their future. These are all great. Like, they should look at Bitcoin mostly. But there are some, traders, professional traders, or VCs or hedge funds, which may find it very interesting to get closer to crypto. And there is a lot of, as you said before, there's a lot of money to be made if you are a professional trader or in a short-term investor. If you just want to flip the coins, etc. But it's just not for most people. I would say it's not for plus 90% of people, but these 10%. So there will always be these, PE funds and hedge funds and VC funds. So that's also why I don't think there in that particular area there will not be a shift in the next 10 years to zero crypto and 100% Bitcoin. But definitely it is an up and coming narrative that it gets stronger and stronger, especially also with people like Jeff Booth, with building a VC around this and only this topic, together with big names like Lynn Alden and Preston Pish, etc. And so I think that ball is rolling, and it gets faster and faster, and more activity is also to be expected in the next few years, especially when there will be a bull market next year. With ETF and halving and everything that is coming, I believe there will be a big bull market, and so we will also see a massive influx of institutional capital, VC capital, into this Bitcoin only thing. So Bitcoin only will grow, but also crypto will never really go away from a VC perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense. There will always be the opportunity to get in before the ICO and then dump on retail and make a lot of money if you're venture capital. But it is
NFTs,
great.
ordinals, whatever.
Right. It is great to see, guys like Jeff Booth's Ego Death Capital, and then you've got like Trammell Venture Partners. There's a lot of Bitcoin only VCs because there is a massive opportunity, right? If we're right about what Bitcoin is in the future and these ETFs bringing in trillions of dollars worth of capital, it's going to be a huge opportunity to build businesses on Bitcoin. And you've mentioned that Relai is non-custodial. So do your clients, they buy and they immediately have to take self-custody?
Yeah, exactly. So we don't do any custody at all. We never hold funds on behalf of our users. So you can imagine, and I don't think anything like that exists in the US yet, at least, but in Europe, there's also this law in Switzerland where you don't have to do any KYC and AML as long as the service provider doesn't hold funds on your behalf, up to 1K per day and 100K per year. So that makes it this even more interesting case for us. So basically, you can imagine people in Europe can just download Relai on their phone within a couple of seconds from the App Store, and then they can open it, and they within 1 minute they can go through a couple of screens, and then within 1 minute, from $10 already, they can buy Bitcoin 24/7. Pay it via bank transfer or via a credit card or Apple Pay, Google Pay, and they get it right into with a non-chain transaction right into their non-custodial wallet, which is Relai is also a wallet. So in that little process, a wallet got installed on your phone, and you have the private key as a user. We never have access to your funds, to your Bitcoin, to your private key, whatever. So that's pretty cool, and that's also why a lot of people are using us, because it's so easy to onboard, and because you always are in control of your future, of your money, of your Bitcoin. So yes, you basically buy Bitcoin right away into your non-custodial wallet, and then you can do whatever. You can send it to a hardware wallet or whatever. So
That is
that's a
awesome.
big differentiator as well to most of these other players we have mentioned before here in Europe and in the US.
Yeah, nothing like that exists in the US. You always have like the option to have it held custodially with the exchange. That's great, especially when you're onboarding newbies, because I find a big barrier is they don't really want to take self custody. So if you onboard them through your app, they have no choice, and it's better for them. And then also, I imagine it makes it easier on your end because you don't have to worry about dealing with custody. I think if I'm running an exchange, I would want everybody to take self custody because I don't want to have to be responsible for holding other people's coins and not losing them. You've seen even Bitcoin exchanges with good intentions, they partner with the wrong custodian, things can go wrong. So that's a really great feature of your platform. And I wonder if I could connect with my VPN and download it over in America.
You
So
can
you
try.
actually, yeah, you kind of also answered another question I had, which like Switzerland is notorious for, I guess, lax banking laws. How has that affected your business as being an on ramp? Because I know some of the states in America, like New York specifically, it's very difficult to run a Bitcoin exchange. Are there any roadblocks over there, or do the regulators make it pretty easy for you to run your business?
I think the regulator here in Switzerland makes it pretty easy to start a business in general, especially in financial services. So they want to promote, fintechs a lot. So they also allow for more or less light regulations and licensing, etc., at the beginning of a business. So they want to really foster entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem here in, especially in fintech. So that's great. They also are very positive on Bitcoin and crypto. So since 2018, I think our political leader, our government basically said that we want to be a crypto nation and we want to attract a lot of business to Switzerland in that, which also is the case, with the Crypto Valley in Zug, Ethereum Foundation, Tezos Foundation. So a lot of shitcoinery, but also a lot of Bitcoin activity in Zurich, which is right next to Zug. So I think, and now Lugano as well, Plan B, you might familiar with.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of these campaigns going on, which is great. It does attract a lot of global Bitcoin crypto business here, and so Switzerland's very very open to that and makes it rather easy. Especially if you're non-custodial. So if you're Bitcoin only, you don't touch any potential securities, and you're non-custodial, so you don't hold money on behalf of your customers, and you don't make any financial or investment decisions on behalf of your customer. That makes you not a asset manager, not a bank, not a custodian, which is all highly regulated. But it lets you operate as a financial service provider, financial intermediary, or also called broker, where basically you just take one form of money, you exchange it, and you give it back to the client. And this is a very, this is the lowest tier financial service provider you can be, and that's how we are regulated. So we are regulated. We have a broker license, but this one is rather easy to get. It's far away from a fully fledged banking license, right? Where the bar is also super high here in Switzerland, of course. But yeah, this kind of tiered licensing system is pretty cool and it's great for Bitcoin startups. Still, it's still hard enough to
Right.
create one and to start one. That's why there are not so many. But I would imagine it's easier than in the US.
Gotcha. How have you seen demand and the sort of type of client you have change over the past year, right? Because I imagine at the bottom of the bear market this time last year, it was probably just diehard Bitcoiners, clients you had already had in 2021. Are you starting to see an influx of new demand and with this price action and then people anticipating a massive bull market coming up?
Yeah, totally. So I think there's two things I see. One is what you mentioned, is that just the more volatility you have, the more new people come in, because it's normal, right? When either Bitcoin crashes and people want to buy the dip and the media write about it and more people want to come and buy the dip, or Bitcoin rallies and then people don't want to miss the train, they FOMO in, the media writes about it and more people want to FOMO in. So this is what we have seen a lot whenever we have no price action. And there was this time, I think 21, 22, year 22 probably mainly, where we had like a very flat period, and I think it was the longest bear market, where we were for a long time between 20 and 30k, not a lot of volume, not a lot of volatility, no price action. The media didn't give a shit, so that's exactly what you said is what we have seen, that only the die-hard Bitcoiners were just stacking, holding, stacking, holding, buying the dip, stacking, holding. And we do have a lot of these people, and we have a great referral program. So these die-hard Bitcoiners, or also a lot of Bitcoin maxis, they are referring us to other people. So this way we managed to even grow in that very, very hard, basically Bitcoin winter. But we grew, a little bit, 5%, 10% a month on average, which was still great. for this time, because many other, especially crypto brokers, they have lost 60%, 70% of their volume. They had to lay off like 30 to 50% of their people. They had to raise down rounds. So really a lot of negativity for them, which was crazy to see. And it's clearly a testament to these short-term traders that are interested in crypto when it's hot, but they don't give a shit when it's not. Like for example, the OpenSea thing is a good example, right? NFT, biggest NFT company, billion-dollar valuation, and now they, I think they have less than 3% of their volumes that they used to have, because no one gives a shit anymore about NFTs. That's what happened to others, and really the opposite happened to us. For example, when FTX blew up, a lot of these crypto brokers suffered even more, and we actually made a good have seen a good influx of new people, because they saw, okay, we probably want to deal with only Bitcoin, not all these other shitcoins. We want to deal with a regulated, in Switzerland, regulated party, and not with like Bahamas regulation or whatever. And non-custodial is the deal. We don't want to depend on or have to trust any counterparty. No counterparty risk. We want to take control of our own bitcoins. These are exactly the things that we encompass. Like, that's how our brand and our service and our team attracted a lot of new business, even though the market was very hard. But now, obviously, with the price going up, it's pretty crazy. The influx that we see, we grow between 30 and 50% month over month. It's at quite high levels, historically, at least for this company. So really going well. And that's the second development that we are seeing, is that that has to do probably also with our positioning and our company maturing, not only with the market but as well with the market too, is that we see still a lot of retail and kind of affluent customers, but also more and more private, high net worth individual, and also business SME customers that now start to accumulate more tap into Bitcoin and accumulate more Bitcoin. So when we started this segment, we call it Relai Private and Relai Business. We started this only beginning of this year, and then we had couple of a handful of people that were interested in that. Mid-year, we probably hit like 1.5 million monthly volume. So okay, quite a bit, but probably less than 10 new onboardings a month. Now, like October, we saw like 3 million. November, we saw 4 million, and this month will be like, it's already now 4 million, and we'll probably end up at close to 10 million in volume. So it's pretty crazy, and like we have every day new onboardings. Sometimes even very high net worth individuals that want to start off with pocket money for them, which is 250,000 or 500,000, and then we'll go up to several millions, and really want to understand Bitcoin, and then do it the right way with a regulated service provider, and hold it themselves. So they also want to learn how to take self custody, at least for part of their Bitcoin, which is super interesting trend to see. We also see other like investors shifting from other asset classes in their portfolio to Bitcoin. For example, a lot of real estate or also precious metals are being sold, or also stocks or bonds, like basically all the other asset classes. But I think mainly real estate, at least in our case, what we see is mainly real estate is being sold for Bitcoin to create a bigger portion of Bitcoin, or a bit bigger part of the portfolio. Which is super interesting trends to see, and I hope it goes on like this.
Right. I think it will. I think we're going to see Bitcoin merge itself into the traditional portfolio distribution, right? It's not going to be 60% bonds, 40% stocks. It's going to be Bitcoin's going to have its niche in there. And the question sort of boils down to what percent of each investor's portfolio are they willing to put into Bitcoin? And like you said, $250,000 is pennies for some of these financial institutions. So if they take just a 1% stake in Bitcoin, that could really send the price soaring to the moon. These private clients, how versed are they on Bitcoin? Are they coming to you and they already have a general understanding? They're like ready to go? Or are they, do they need a few more steps down the educational line before they're really ready to dive in?
It's interesting. We see both, but more and more, I feel like these people are quite educated because there is high quality information out there. We, for example, provide a lot of this and a lot of other companies as well. So, for example, we have the Relai Bitcoin podcast as well, where I interview a great guests and where we share a lot of knowledge from experts. We have a quarterly Relay Bitcoin report that we send, like research report that we send out. We have uh, the Relay Bitcoin weekly newsletter that we send out. More than 12,000 people, I think, subscribe for this. We do a lot of posts, especially on X, but also on LinkedIn, etc., about Bitcoin, sharing knowledge there. We have a blog section on the website, etc., etc. So we're doing a lot. We have an ebook, a free ebook that everyone is free to download and share with people. We have a 21 Bitcoin email lesson, so everyone can basically subscribe to this and get for 21 days 21 lessons about Bitcoin. And that's only us. There's so many other companies that really focus even more on media companies and influencers and bloggers and content creators, YouTubers, etc., that only focus on Bitcoin education. So more and more we see people coming to us, or like ready to go. Like, okay, I took my time for the last year or so, and I dug deep and I really understood Bitcoin, digital gold, savings technology. Don't care about the other cryptos. I want to hold it myself. So all the principles, the basics, they have understood, and they're basically ready to go. There are also still people that come and just want to have a call and learn about it. So then we provide all these education materials to them, and they figure it out. They take a bit longer, but most of these others, as said before, they read Lynn Alden's book, for example, or they listen to Jeff Booth in all these podcasts. They listen to all the Preston Pish podcasts, etc., and then look, they're ready. They just want to find the right provider, and we seem to be the right one for many because we stick with this whole Bitcoin ethos. So they basically they check us out. We check all the boxes, and then yeah, pretty much we're ready to go. We just need to provide an easy onboarding for them, and then they are off to the races.
Yeah, that makes sense. I imagine as we get further into the bull market, you'll start seeing more of the people who are just inquiring now and don't really have that full understanding yet. What are your expectations for 2024? The general consensus among Bitcoiners is that this thing's going to the moon. The ETF's going to send us past 100,000, having, Fed pivot. The hodlers are have an all-time percent of the supply. What are you thinking is going to happen in 2024?
Absolutely. I can't really imagine another scenario than what you just described, exactly because of the accelerating factors that you just described. Maybe one last one to add would be politics, which maybe not doesn't really move the needle yet in 2024, but on the long run it does, and it creates a positive sentiment because one last um, negative element for a lot of newcomer investor is that, oh, this whole thing will be banned, right? And governments will shut it down. And I think it helps that even in the US, many presidential candidates, including RFK, and many others, are kind of proponents for Bitcoin. And then in Middle and South America, like obviously El Salvador, but also Argentina now, they have very Bitcoin friendly leaders. And in Mexico and Colombia, etc., there will be elections with high probability that pro-Bitcoiners will be elected. More and more countries, nations will also adopt Bitcoin, and this whole political development is also very positive for Bitcoin in the long run, and it may play into the 2024 bull run as well, just because it gives more legitimization and lowers the risk for also bigger investors, that this thing will just be shut down by the government. But yeah, I'm with you. I think, I mean, I don't know if we will hit 100K, but we're already quite close to another all-time high, and I think the ETF plus halving will send us probably past the all-time high in dollar terms, because also the dollar is devaluating anyway
Yeah.
against a very against the most scarce even fixed asset that we've ever seen, and it will be there will be less new supply on the market with the halving, etc. So I cannot there's no other way for me, and I try to be open minded, but I don't see a better asset to invest in the next year, and I don't see another way where Bitcoin could go because of all these factors. Maybe we are biased. I'm no pretty sure we are biased. So I'm still looking to talk about this with other people that are investing in other stuff, and I think other assets will do well. Gold, oil, real estate, a lot of precious metals. Basically, everything that is scarce, I think, will do well in 2024, because when that happens, when the inflation is going to stay here, if the interest rates will go down again, then these assets will also appreciate. But I think the perfect storm is really only happening in Bitcoin. Then I do see a very bright and orange future, yeah, especially for 2024.
I 100% agree, brother. And that was a great point about the politics of it, because you and I understand that they can't actually enforce a Bitcoin ban because of the way the nodes are distributed and because you can hold the private keys basically in your head. But the vast, vast majority of people don't have that technical understanding. They think the government could shut it down if they wanted to. And the fact that you're seeing it sort of become a political issue, for better or for worse, I think it's for better, because there's politicians that are going to go to bat for Bitcoin. You're going to see certain nation states and certain states within the US take a pro Bitcoin stance, and that alone should be enough to orange pill people on the idea that, all right, this thing is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. They're not going to make it illegal. The worst thing they could do is make it difficult to use, right? They couldn't actually stop us from using it. They could sever the on and off ramps, and that would be a headache. But
Mm.
that seems very, very unlikely at this point. And as Bitcoin's market cap grows, the number of people with a vested interest in Bitcoin's success will also grow, right? And so if the politicians are actually trying to represent the people they're supposed to represent, then our interest is for Bitcoin to succeed. And so they'll have to go to bat for it from a legislative perspective. Julian, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. My last question for you is, what does Bitcoin mean to you?
Bitcoin means financial freedom, and not in the way that you have enough money so you can do whatever you want, but it's the first time that you can actually take control of your financial future with Bitcoin. No one can take it away from you. No one can censor it. No one can block your transaction. No one can freeze your account, whatever. It's no one can impose limits on how much you can spend with your credit card, even though you have the money in the bank account. That happens a lot. So it's just freedom. It's money that you can use anywhere in the world, however you want to use it, and no one can stop you. It's unstoppable. And I, as a libertarian, probably you too, and a lot of the listeners, this is very, very sympathetic to me. So that's why basically I'm glad that Bitcoin is here, and that's what Bitcoin means to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Where can we send the audience to learn more about what you're doing and to get on board into Relai App?
Yeah, basically it's relay.app. There you can find everything, and we were also big on X, Twitter, relay underscore app, I think, or something. I mean, you'll find us for sure, or relay.app maybe as well. We're also on LinkedIn, and both these are also my two most active channels. You can find us there. We also have a YouTube channel. And as said, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Even though you're not in Europe, maybe our content is also interesting for you. And yeah, happy to also, my DMs are also open whenever you have questions. Let me know.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, brother.